23 Words of the Queen 655. Admirable, my daughter, is the love, the fidelity, and the solicitude with which the angelic spirits assist mortals in their necessities, and most horrible is the forgetfulness, ingratitude, and grossness on the part of men in failing to acknowledge this debt. In the bosom of the Most High, whose face they see, Math 8:10, in beatific clearness, these heavenly spirits perceive the infinite paternal love of the Father in heaven for earthly men, and therefore they appreciate and estimate worthily the blood of the Lamb, by which men were bought and rescued, and they know the value of the souls thus purchased with the treasures of the divinity. Thence arises their watchfulness and attention in securing the interests of the souls, which, on account of the value set upon them by the Most High, have been given into their charge. I wish thee to understand well, how by the ministry of these angels, mortals would receive great enlightenment, and incomparable favors from the Lord, if only they did not hinder them by their sins and abominations, and by their oblivion of this inestimable blessing. But as they block up the way, which God in His ineffable providence has opened up for conducting them to eternal felicity, the greater part of them damn themselves, whereas, with the protection of the angels and with a proper estimate of His blessing, they could save themselves. 656 O my dearest daughter, since many men are so indifferent in attending to the paternal works of my Son and Lord, I seek in thee a special gratitude for this blessing. Since He has dealt with thee liberally in His appointment of angels for thy guard, be attentive to their intercourse and listen to their injunctions with reverence, give thyself over to their guidance, honor them as the ambassadors of the Most High, seek their favor, in order that, having been cleansed of thy sins and freed from imperfection, inflamed with divine love, thou mayest become so spiritualized, as to be fit to treat with them as their companion in the participation of the divine illuminations. These He will not withhold from thee, if thou on thy part dispose thyself in the manner I desire. 657 Since thou hast desired to know in the spirit of obedience, what was the reason that the holy angels communicated with me in so many kinds of visions, I will respond to thy desires, explaining more clearly what thou hast understood and written with the aid of divine light. The cause of this privilege was, on the part of the Most High, His most liberal love, with which He pursued me, and on my part, it was the state of pilgrimage, in which I then found myself. For it was neither possible nor befitting, that this life should be altogether uniform in regard to the acts of virtue, by which the divine wisdom wished to raise me above all creation. As this pilgrimage was to be performed by me as a human wayfarer, subject to the use of the senses with all its various coincidences of life in the practice of virtue, I sometimes acted altogether in a spiritual manner and without the hindrance of the senses, when the angels communicated with me as they do among themselves. At other times it was necessary for me to suffer and to be afflicted in the lower part of my soul or in my sensitive faculties. At other times again I suffered want, loneliness and interior dereliction. According to the vicissitudes of these different effects and conditions I received the favors and the visits of the holy angels. Many times then did I speak to them by intelligence, at others in imaginary species, at others in corporeal and sensible vision, according as my state and necessities demanded and the Most High ordained. 658 By all these means my faculties and senses were illumined and sanctified through the divine influences and blessings, in asterisk order that I might experience in reality all these operations and through all of them receive the influx of supernatural grace. But in regard to these favors, my dearest daughter, I wish thee to remember, that although God acted with such magnificent mercy toward me, He nevertheless followed His intention of conferring them upon me so lavishly not only because of my dignity as His mother, but because he took into account my cooperation and disposition by which I concurred with his graces on my part. I withdrew all my faculties and senses from intercourse with created things, and rejecting all that was merely sensible and created, turned to the highest good and centered all the powers of my will on his holy love. In this disposition of my soul I sanctified all my faculties by cooperation with these favors, visions and illuminations, having evacuated them of all human and terrestrial pleasures. So great was the reward of my works in mortal flesh, that thou canst not understand it, nor describe it with mortal tongue. The liberality of the Highest at once makes an advance payment of the blessings in this life as a pledge of those he has reserved for the eternal. 659 And although the powerful arm of God by these means wished to prepare me worthily from my conception for the incarnation of the Word in my womb, and to sanctify and form my faculties and senses for the intercourse and communication with my Son, nevertheless, if other souls would dispose themselves in imitation of me, living not according to the flesh but according to the Spirit, free and untouched by the earthly contagion, the Most High would show his fidelity to these souls as well and would not deny them his blessings and favors according to the equity of his divine providence.